Hi, welcome. I'm Stephanie, and on this channel, I like to talk about my houseplants. In today's video, I'm talking about some of my favorite houseplants for the month of June. Every month or so, I release a new favorites video about my houseplants, and I like to separate them into about 4 categories. So if you're new here, let me give you the rundown. First of all, I like to talk about my comeback. So that's a plant that maybe wasn't doing very well. It didn't show any signs of new growth. And then all of a sudden it's starting to make a comeback. It's starting to do a little bit better. The next plant I'll talk about is my fastest grower. So that's probably the plant that has been pushing out the most growth in the month, at least the most growth that I've noticed. The next one I like to talk about is the show off. So that's the plant that maybe is sporting some beautiful foliage or really nice variegation. So that one I like to call the show off. And the last plant that I show at the end is the MVP, the most valuable plant. So like the plant I just couldn't get enough of for the month of June. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And I hope you enjoy this video. Let's get started. So the first plant that I'm going to talk about. Okay, I know it's been just like a few moments for you, but once again, I've knocked down one of my plants. I don't think I caught it on video, but I think I have probably made a mess. If my memory serves me right, I think I've had an accident with my plants in every single one of my plant favorites videos. I have no idea. I don't know. I guess I'm clumsy. It happens every single time. But anyways, the show must go on. I was telling you about my comeback. So this is the comeback that I'm going to talk about this month. And hopefully I will not have a mess. But this is my Monstera Peru. And I wonder if I've spoken about this in a previous video as a comeback. I can't quite remember, but this plant is definitely, it's not an easy plant. I'm trying to think if I hear a lot of people talking about this. I think there was a time when more people spoke about this plant. I don't hear about it as often as one time before. And if I have to make a guess, this plant, it's a tricky plant. It sometimes gets these yellowing leaves. The leaves become yellow, they crisp, they fall off very easily. And that's the challenge with this plant. Many times I've wanted to give up on this plant, but I really love it. I love the texture of the leaves. I love how deep some of the leaves can look. And I just love the veins. It's such a unique plant. And it's a Monstera. I love Monsteras. It's probably one of my favorite, or maybe the genus that I first fell in love with. But anyways, this plant, it was originally, I had it growing in water. So in some of my earliest videos, you would see that I had this plant growing in water. And then after a while, so I'm not sure if the plant gets tired of growing in water, or if maybe as the roots become more mature and as it gets more roots, I'm not replenishing the water as quickly as I should. And so, but anyways, my point is after a while, the plant it thrived in water, and then it sort of seemed like it hated water all of a sudden. It changed its mind. And so I've been struggling with this plant quite a bit since then, because I potted it up and I took it out of water. I tried a few things, but the last thing I did, long story short, is I put it into Molly's aeroid mix. And if you've heard this from me before, this is my most trusted potting mix or my most trusted, potting mix that I use. I put it in here, and so it took a while before it acclimated, and now it finally has come through. So let me show you the new growth. We have some new growth coming in here. This is a new leaf here. It has a new growth coming here. This is a new leaf coming here, and it has a new leaf at the tip there, some new growth coming in. So it's finally giving me some new growth. What I love about this plant is if the leaves feel like if they're going upward, if it's growing, the vine is growing upward, it's going to give you some nice big leaves. I don't think, I've never seen them get huge, but they definitely will size up somewhat for you. And this vine and I have, we've had a falling out. It, for some reason, as you can see, the vine, I have it in my south facing window. So this plant gets a lot of light because it's so slow growing. I try to give it as much light as possible. I try to give it the best growing conditions. And I also have it in a self-watering pot. That way it's not waiting on me for water. It's not waiting on me for good light. It's getting the best that I can offer apart from grow lights. I don't think I want to put this plant under grow lights. But anyways, and I have it in my bathroom. I'll insert like a clip or a picture, but I have it where I have intertwined or I have wrapped the vine in a ladder that it's hanging from. And I thought it would have loved it, but for some reason, the new leaves have been smaller, well, were smaller, I should say. And then it just started vining for me without pushing out any new growth. So it pushed out a runner basically, which is like a vine with no new leaves. So I chopped that off, and that was a few weeks ago. But again, this plant is so slow growing. I don't expect it to do anything anytime soon with this vine, but it's doing well with the rest of the little plants that's in here. So I'm actually quite excited and relieved because for a second I thought I would lose it, and I said, you know what, if I lose it, that's it. Like, I'm done. But what I've learned, like I've mentioned before, what I've learned about this plant is it's a thirstier plant, I would say. I do think that it grows very well in water up to a point, and then I think it really likes that chunky aeroid style mix. And because I think at least mine is quite thirsty, I put it in a self-watering pot so that it's not reliant on me. But apart from that, this is how it's doing. I'm happy that it's doing a lot better. But if you have a Monstera Peru, it can get a bit frustrating. If you don't know what to do, chop it up, put it in some water. You may want to try that, or try some aeroid potting mix. This is a soilless mixture, and I think you may have a little bit of better success. Just give it some bright light and try again. Don't give up. But that's this one. This is my, I hope you can see it well, but this is my comeback. I actually made this hanger myself. It's not one of the best ones that I've made, but I did find these hangers were getting a little bit expensive to buy one individually for every single pot. So I bought some twine and I made my own. So that's what it looks like. I do find it's a bit awkward in this rectangular pot. I think they fit a lot better on a round pot, but I'm trying to make it work. Okay, so I usually only have one plant per category, but for this one, the comeback, I feel like I really wanted to add this plant. I was in two minds, but I think I really want to add this plant. And this is a Hoya, this is a Hoya Joy Splash. This is probably one of my Hoya with the most striking leaves. I love the leaves on this plant. But anyways, the reason why this one is actually a comeback is because for a long time it did nothing. It just hung in there a bit, and I was okay with it as long as it wasn't losing leaves. But I've noticed that with this Hoya, I think it's a little bit thirsty. Anyways, when I decided to start upping the watering on this plant, I noticed that it started really pushing out this vine, and the leaves on the vine started to activate. So far, like in the past, I would say, 3 weeks, if so much, I don't even think it's been that long. It's decided to activate or push out 1, 2, 3 leaves, and then it's pushing the vine further and further and further and further. But I am really impressed that this tiny little thing has decided to take on 3 new leaves all at once. I hope that they're going to be very big, satisfying leaves like this one here, and not like these smaller leaves. But I have a feeling the size of the leaves is connected to my watering and the amount of light that it's getting. So I'm not sure if it's because it was getting too much light, that's why these leaves are a little bit smaller, or because I sort of, not sort of, I did. I underwatered this plant significantly. So I'm trying to sort of stay on top of the watering a little bit more because I really want to promote these bigger leaves. But again, I've noticed that when I really started watering it a little bit more, that's when it sort of just started doing this push here. I'm thrilled because I'm excited to see if it's going to give me any splashing, because this leaf does not have much splashing on it, that light green splashing, but this one has, oh, look at this. Ah, the half moon leaf, stunning. It's such a juicy looking plant. It's so juicy. I adore it. But the thing about the splashing is you can't really tell how much splashing you have until the leaf is a lot bigger and a lot further along. So I can't tell at all yet. But this Hoya, definitely, if you're thinking of getting the Hoya Joy Splash, I really recommend it. I do think I need to put it in a self-watering pot though. I think that would help it to grow a lot faster. Yeah, this plant is one that I would recommend. If you've been thinking about it, go for it and try to get one with high splashing on it, because it's going to be worth it. Just be patient and just get a nice splashy one. The next plant on my list is my fastest grower and grower. I can't seem to say that. This is my second take. Let's try again. The next plant on my list is my fastest grower. Yeah, that sounds right. And this is the one that I managed to drop just now. So it's not looking as beautiful as it did about 20 minutes ago. But anyways, I will show you nonetheless. This one basically represents all of my syngonium right now, because all my syngonium around my house they're pushing right now. They are having the best time ever. And so this one that I will share in today's video, this is my Syngonium albo. This plant, I got it a few months ago. I got it at one of my favorite nurseries, Harper's Nursery. I'll put an image here of what that nursery looks like. I actually did a tour of it recently. But anyways, this plant is from my first trip to that nursery. I actually enjoy visiting this nursery so much. I love their selection and just their prices as well, that I decided to get this plant sort of to help me remember to commemorate my first trip to that nursery. But anyways, this one is a Syngonium albo. I find that the specimen, or at least what they had at the time, did not have the highest amount of variegation. So I find that this plant, when I got it or when it started growing, it wasn't pushing out as much variegation as I wanted. So I will show you a clip of what it looked like maybe 2 months ago. I'm not sure. I'll put the date on the screen. I posted a picture on my Instagram. If you don't follow me there you can get more recent pictures of my plants. But anyways, that's what it looked like a few months ago. I can't remember when that was. But anyways, I decided to chop it up, and I looked for the node that had the most variegation, and I cut right above that node to sort of trigger that vine to push out more leaves that had a lot of variegation. And so it's definitely doing a lot better than it was in terms of variegation. I have so much more, and Syngoniums are so satisfying. You cut it once and it will just push out a number of vines from the area that you cut it from. But anyways, I love the way it looks now. If you look here, you can see it definitely accomplished what I wanted it to do. Some vines or some leaves don't have that much variegation, but I think it's promising. I think it's actually depending on how much light that it's getting. And it's right next to the last plant that I showed you, the Peru. It's in a south-facing window. It's just kissing that window. But we've had, like I said, some inconsistent weather where we're having a lot of cloudy days. So I think that's what's causing the leaves to have some inconsistent leaves. So like bright leaves, like bright variegation here, and then like not so much, but that's okay. I'm just happy that this vine is doing well and it has high amounts of variegation, because the next leaf, this one here, it does have high amounts of variegation in it. I'm not sure if it's showing here, but it looks very white. So when it unfurls soon enough, we'll be able to see how much variegation it has in there. but I'm very happy. It is blossoming. It's doing beautifully. It's growing in pon, and it was doing great. It is doing great, but I just made a mess and tipped it over just now. So it's a bit disturbed, but I don't think that will uh, interfere with this plant by any means. It's very fast growing, and I keep the water very high. I'm pretty sure that the roots are in the reservoir. I want to go take a look for you, but I don't want to make a mess again. I just made a big mess. Oh my goodness. It's way further along. I'm glad I checked than I thought. Like, wow, that's a lot of roots in the reservoir. I do think this is one like a thirstier plant. This plant loves water, especially if it's getting high amounts of light, right? And because it's an elbow, I'm giving it high amounts of light. So yeah, it's so easy. Again, I always suggest if you're just getting into houseplants and or you're trying to get lots of color in your collection, just something easy growing. Syngonium is definitely a genus that I would suggest or recommend because it's so easy growing and they're super satisfying. But there's not much to say about this plant. I'm just so happy with how fast it's growing, and all my other Syngonium are like doing well right now. So that's it. That's my fastest grower, my Syngonium albo. How's the video going so far? Like what you see? If you do, let me know by hitting the like button, the little thumbs up button down below, and subscribe. It's free and it'll help you to easily find my videos in the future. Okay, let's keep going. The next plant I'm going to talk about is my show off. So that's usually, like I said, the plant with amazing leaves or amazing variegation. And I know my Syngonium albo had some really nice variegation, but take a look at my Manjula Pothos. Like, check out this variegation. Stunning. I love this plant. It's a beautiful one. It was actually very hard to find a good specimen of this plant, and I'm so glad I waited because this one that I got, it was actually hard to choose when I was choosing. The nursery had a really nice selection when I went that time, and I not only love the variegation on this plant. Let's start with the variegation though. It has this very painted look, sometimes green, sometimes light green, sometimes cream, sometimes white variegation, sometimes it's even a little yellow. It's a very satisfying plant in terms of variegation. And it's funny, when I first saw this plant, I wasn't in love with the leaf shape. I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, what? It looks like it needs to be ironed. But now, after a while, it started to grow on me. I actually enjoy the unusual texture and shape of the leaves. It has sort of this crumpled look, like paper that you've crumpled up and then you try to open it up again. I actually like the sort of deformed look of the leaves. I love how wide this leaf is. It's very nice. And this plant, if you know it well, when it starts to vine upward or when it starts to grow upward, it will start to give you even bigger leaves. So eventually I hope to get there with this plant, but I still need to sort of tweak my collection a little bit. I'm not there yet in terms of being able to put this plant on a pole to grow upward. I know that I want to get there, but I'm not there yet. So I have it on my little wall, my little plant wall. If you've seen any of my other videos, you would have noticed I have a little plant wall and it's on the lowest shelf on that wall. And I have this vine facing on the wall, but growing upwards. So I hope eventually it's just going to help itself and climb up that wall until I can get a solid, like vine for it. But if you notice, there's a size difference. Look at the size of these leaves here. And then look at the size of these leaves here. See, these ones here are a little bit smaller. And what's interesting is that this side faces more light. It gets more exposure to light than this side. So you can see that this plant definitely likes to feel like it's going upward. It's not, pothos tends to be a very fast growing plant, but this one, it's not growing as quickly as some of my other pothos. And it could be because it has such high variegation. I know I have a damaged leaf there. That was me. It could be because of the very high variegation on it, or it could be because I have it in a very chunky mixture. I actually ran out of my potting mix and I only had coconut husks, like just a little bit. So this is mostly coconut husks in here. And so because of that, I imagine it dries out very quickly, but I'm also wary of overwatering it. So I actually need to refresh or update its its mixture in here. But I just don't like going at plant roots unless I really, really have to. And so yeah, but so far it's still growing really well despite probably not being watered as often as it would like to be watered. And so I'm fine with that. I'm fine so far. Eventually I'll switch things up. And what I also like to do with this plant is occasionally when we have like some heavy rain, I like to put it outside just for it to get a nice drink of like rainwater. So I actually did that a few days ago. So I know it's well watered today. But yeah, this one I'm really enjoying it. I've noticed in the past few days I've been sort of keeping my eye on it because I've been enjoying these leaves. But yeah, this is a nice one, the Manjula Pothos. All right, and the last plant that I have to share with you today is my MVP. It's the plant, like I said, my most valuable plant, the one that surprised me throughout the month, the one that I just couldn't get enough of. I've been staring at it so much this month. And that would be my Hoya Lacunosa Super Silver. Yes, if you saw my last video that included Hoya, or like my last chatty video, I mentioned this plant in my update. So it was an update of a haul, and I talked about this plant. And funny enough, a viewer came to my Instagram. I guess they hadn't seen that video yet, and they saw maybe this plant a month ago, and they commented like, wow, this plant has grown so much. And it has. It is actually, oh, it's one of my fastest growing Hoya. I would say that for sure. And it was vining so beautifully that I decided to put it on this DIY, just like a metal trellis. But it's growing so thick when it feels like it's growing upwards, it grows so thick with very little internodal spacing that it makes it look really full. So you're not even going to see this eventually. But I absolutely adore this plant. It has the most beautiful silver leaves. It's so cute. And mine seem to have different kinds of leaves. So this one has more of a like silver like with green splashing, very little green splashing. And then down here, we have sort of a more croniana look here. I find the croniana tends to show more of those abs. I like to call them abs, but you could see sort of the veins in the leaves way more in a croniana. So right here, I'm getting croniana vibes. But then over here, I'm getting more lacunosa vibes on the plant here. I love it. And it's a little bit of a fuller pot. I put some cuttings in to keep it nice and full, and it's growing beautifully. It's one of my few Hoya in soil. So, and it seems to like it. I don't know why I was so scared of Hoya in soil, but I've been trying to get away from soil when it comes to my small plants. My big plants, my trees, fine. I'm not going to put all of that in like a soilless potting mix. But with my smaller plants, I was trying to get away from soil. But this plant is doing so well in soil and in a self-watering pot. I mean, it actually dries out faster than I expected to. But it does sit in a south-facing window. It doesn't get any direct sunlight because of the height of the sun right now. But yeah, it does get a lot of bright indirect light. But it's doing so well. I've been seeing this plant a lot more in nurseries now. So if you happen to find one, I recommend it. I think it's quite satisfying and I think you'll enjoy it. So this is my MVP for the month. And that's it for today's video. These are my favorite houseplants for the month of June. What are your favorite houseplants? Which plants were you sort of lingering around for the month of June? Please let me know in the comments. I love hearing back from you because it gives me ideas on what plants I should look out for. And if you have any questions for me, please leave them in the comment section below. And if you liked this video, I have a strong feeling that you may like some of these other videos here. And you can subscribe by clicking right here. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.